Trade Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends.
Here in episode 60, we're joined by Chet Ciesielski, Vice President on-highway truck business at Navistar, where we talk about how Navistar works with customers when it comes to fuel economy, his thoughts on the vocational business, how hydrogen fuel cells will play a part in long haul, and why the industry needs to work together to harness the momentum of electrification. Today we have joining us Chet Ciesielski. He's Vice President of on-highway truck business at Navistar. And this is going to be a lot of fun. It's a real pleasure having you on today, Chet.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate being on and talking to the team and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, so full disclosure here, many of you know this, some may not, but right off the bat, I worked at Navistar in product development along with Chet from about 1996 to 2009. I'm not exactly sure when you joined, Chet. I think we'll get into that, but this podcast is called Mike Roth and Friends. Chet, you're a friend, but do you remember how we met for the first time?
I started at Navistar like in 2005, and I think I came across you. It would have been a couple of years into the organization. I believe we were starting to talk about no idle HVAC and how can we do things different to reduce fuel or improve fuel, I should say. I'm thinking I was back in body, running the body engineering group, and I was running the HVAC team as well. And I think you were on the kind of forward-thinking, advanced side of the house at that time.
Yeah, I do. Didn't you spend a little time in severe service?
That I did as well. I did early years in body and, of course, HVAC. And then after about 5 years at the organization, I jumped over into the vocational side or severe side of the business. Yeah, I was running that vocational side from an engineering perspective and what we're doing for customers. That's correct.
That's right. So we had basically the same job at different times. So I was doing that, and I was doing that in the early 2000s. And I think about that time a lot. I mean, we launched at the time it was the 7000 series, which is turned into Workstar, and I think today Navistar, you actually call it the HV, if I got that right.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so we were bringing an all new cab and product into a market that was pretty high market share in that time for Navistar, and I learned a lot about how to help customers get their specs right in a changing environment, which is really what we've got going on now with so much technology change happening. Quite interesting. How do you think about the vocational business before we get over maybe in the rest of the time into on-highway?
The vocational business is very interesting right now with all the entrants and everything going on, the emissions that are playing out there. I look at the vocational business and still see that they're going to be required. You think about the snow plows, the garbage trucks, dump bodies, and everything that's going on there. It's a very solid business, very stable business. And I continue to see us investing and doing our thing kind of on the HV and HX front. There's not much change there, Mike, from when you had it. They're still rolling with the same kind of work trucks that we need then. We need them now.
Yeah, we just released a report on medium duty electric trucks. And one of the things we brought out there, Chet, is that in these vocational trucks, and even some of the trucks that move freight, whether it's, stake bodies or box trucks and so forth, there's two companies that work together to build the truck. There's the cab and chassis, and then the body builder or truck equipment manufacturer. And as we move into electric trucks, we noted in that report that that becomes challenging because you've just got a lot more engineering to do with respect to utility buckets, even like refuse trucks and packing and electrification. Right off the bat, before I guess at the early stage of this podcast, what do you think about the challenges around re-engineering for say electricity instead of having engines?
Well, I think the electricity challenge is in front of us. What do I think? Personally, I see the voltage, the truck itself, and I think we all understand this, Mike. The truck itself is going to be on a good, solid foundation. Putting electric on chassis, I don't see as a big challenge. It's going to be a weight challenge, of course. The technology to run that higher voltage is going to be a challenge in the tractor. I think the infrastructure is where it's really going to be the challenge. I do think that we're moving ahead. We have our EMV on the market already. That's our medium platform. We have our bus rolling already. Both of those are launching in production. So when I look at the big picture and say, okay, we understand how to put electric products and technology on chassis. The question is, how does the infrastructure pick up the pace to support that chassis push?
Right, I agree. And we think there are, a lot of high volume, rather simple trucks, day cab tractors, medium duty box trucks, step vans that are, pretty straightforward with not a lot of body requirements. And that will then sort of, lead the way in electrification and cause us to figure out infrastructure and all the other things that need to take place. But, I'm remiss though, Chet. So walk us through your career and let go back as far as you want to go. A guest on my podcast not too long ago said his first zero emission vehicle he worked on was a wooden go-kart. So he was going back to early days. You don't have to go to your childhood, but tell us about your career a little bit. Kind of what got you to being so passionate about what you're doing now?
Well, I started my career as an engineering guy. I started my career at Ford. This was a long time ago, like almost 30 years ago. And I ran most of, about 10, 11 years there, working in the manufacturing, product development, learning a lot about automotive, if you will. I did a lot of time in, of course, validation. So just the typical engineering work and product development. From there, I started to work as Ford started transitioning to the Visteon domain. I started to look and see what other opportunities or what else was out there, and I ended up landing at International. And I've been here for now going on 18 years, and it's been a lot of fun because I've spent time in all functions of International. You think about first it started with engineering. That's where I came into the organization directly in HVAC and body, did some time over in the vocational space. And then the fun one is I went to India for a couple of years as part of the joint venture that we had with Mahindra. Spent a couple of years there. Family loved that. Good experience, holistically. And then I came back here and I was actually in sales for, a good handful of years and had a good time doing that, learning a lot about the customers, learning a lot about their needs. And then that kind of transpired to where I'm at now, where I get to run the overall heavy business, understanding what does the customer need, what do we need to develop, what are the directions of our organization, kind of think about profit and loss, what we're doing in that whole space. And that's where I'm at now.
So let's talk about, sort of what NACFE's about, and that's helping with efficiency. So how does Navistar or International work with your customers when it comes to efficiency? I mean, there's a lot of trade-offs when you go to help customers procure these tools, right? I mean, there's the cost of the equipment, there's, different ways they want to operate and so forth. So how does just basic fuel economy fit into those conversations? And maybe here we'll just focus on, heavy tractors over the road.
Yeah, it works. When you think about our relationship with our partners and our customers, we work very closely with them to jointly develop what their needs are. They're using it every day. They use the products every day. So when I look at it from the heavy side, I really look at saying, they're looking for smaller packages, longer ranges, and then what's that footprint look like and how can we get there? So we have joint partnerships as we're developing our Class 8 tractor, and we feel pretty good about the direction we're going, but working closely with them about how the products come together is very important, not only on electric, but even on the diesel front and everything that we're doing.
Yeah, and one of the things we've learned a lot on diesels that apply to electric or whatever going forward is, the trucking industry is about a lot of choices. And, as we've analyzed it, it's maybe becoming a little bit mitigated with the greenhouse gas rule, but, you could still spec a truck or, a heavy tractor that might be a 5.5, 6 mile per gallon kind of truck, or maybe a 9 mile per gallon kind of truck, including the trailer that you're pulling behind it. So what drives customers as they think about those choices around, buying equipment that's capable of much higher fuel economy or not?
Well, when we're working with customers, really it comes down to the total cost of ownership, not just fuel, but fuel is a big piece of that equation. So when we're going together, and we're coming out with a new integrated powertrain where we'll have the entire system, and working closely with our partners here, our customers here, we're introducing this new integrated powertrain, which I consider the first step to sustainability, the first step to fuel economy. And that will feed into their total cost of ownership because we're reducing some componentry on our designs. So I think it's about the total cost of ownership. I think they look at the fuel economy, and of course, miles per gallon is an important factor. So we work with them to come together on how we're going to launch this product.
Yeah, you just said it pretty quickly, but I think you made a really key point there, and that is, the first step in sustainability is improving the fuel economy of the diesel trucks you're already operating when you're talking about some of these fleets. I mean, I corrected somebody just the other day who was saying, well, that's not decarbonizing. It's got to be zero emission. And I said, basically said, BS, sir. Right? I mean, isn't that the way you guys think about it? And that's the reality of it.
Seriously, Mike. I mean, I think about it. ICE is going to be here for a long time. So one way to, zero footprint is electric, but you still have to get your ICE products cleaned up. And we continue to do that. Fuel economy matters. You think about that regional haul segment, long haul segment. Long haul is going to be in ICE for some time. Regional haul we see as an opportunity to convert and move over to electric. That seems like the more opportunistic location for electric. But in the long term, we're still going to have ICE around. We have to make sure that our product has the best aero features, has the best combustion, has the best ICE powertrains. They're going to bring the fuel economy to the next level.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you kind of a little tricky question here. And that is, we're sitting here with, north of $5 diesel, sometimes, in some places $6 diesel. Now, who knows how long we'll be there. But, in the last decade, we've been at $4 for 4 years. We dropped down to, $2.50 or $3 for 4, 5, 6 years. And now we're back up. So who knows where we're going. But when I got the fuel economy bug in that advanced engineering job at Navistar, when I looked at the history of fuel economy, when fuel prices were up, customers asked and demanded those technologies. And when fuel prices were down, they didn't want them. And it was very difficult to plan engineering products and so forth as a truck builder or even as a supplier. And that sort of whipping back and forth with higher fuel prices, lower fuel prices, and so forth. Do you still see that? I mean, is this last 6 months of fuel price? Do you have a lot more discussions with customers around their specs, or is it something they've just learned to work on no matter what the fuel price is?
I think it is different now, Mike, with the fuel prices, but I still don't see a change in their behaviors. I still see when we're talking to fleets, they're aware of it, but getting and squeezing the most fuel economy out of the tractors is paramount to all of their success. So they work with our applications team pretty close. We go back and forth on specs, what's going to optimize it. Think about the gear ratios, think about the overdrive transmissions. We are actually working very closely with each of the fleet where they're operating and optimizing how they get the most fuel economy. So I'd say that's an advantage. And I think it's the same thing. It's whether it's $5 a gallon or $6 a gallon or $3 a gallon. It feels like the behavior of driving the most fuel out of the vehicles is really risen to the top because they recognize how much money they can save and frankly, run cleaner.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think my thoughts from a decade ago has changed a lot. And I think the whole attitude of the industry around sustainability, around burning less fuel, creating less emissions, it's all into our daily work. It's similar to things like quality from the 70s and 80s, or even safety. I mean, efficiency, sustainability. It's not becoming something we do when we've got time for it or when energy costs are up, but something that's just sort of in the nature of the work, which is a big change, and I think very exciting.
It is. Quite frankly, as we watch this change, we see it. We're recognizing in a lot of the conversations we're having with fleets today. Originally it was about the ICE spec. What's the tractor spec? A lot of the conversations start with what's your carbon footprint look like? What's your zero emissions footprint going to look like of the future? And they talk about that first. We just had some fleets here yesterday and they were talking about, let's talk about zero emissions. What does your footprint look like? And when you're going to bring these items to market? So when you start going through those conversations, we always finish with ICE because you have to realize it's here. But the first topic typically is electric.
Yeah, so let's get into that a little bit because, NACV, we've been doing a lot of work on electrification, and, we sort of feel like it's important to set the stage right, expectations right, be aggressive in certain areas, slow down in some others, because it's just so critical to everything we got going on. And so, I got to just throw it out there. Our belief is that we'll start with smaller trucks, lower miles, return to base, and sort of work its way up because, we really don't have a solution for long haul. But, vans, step vans first, medium duty box trucks. I know you've got the medium duty electric truck available now and working on tractors down the road a little, or working on it now for an introduction later. How you see it as well, with battery electric, and then trying to figure out long haul with fuel cells or whatever else there might be.
Yeah, through our partnership, the support, the Trayton Group, it really comes down to what is our holistic strategy. And you think about it, BEV first. You've said it, we already launched there twice with the bus and the medium. We bring that onto the tractor and think about that shorter haul, that regional haul. Talk 150 miles, they're in and out, kind of doing a lot of deliveries through the day. We see that as kind of the prime path with BEV. And then long term, we got to make sure that we're understanding what's going on, like the fuel cell. So we're going to continue to work on a hydrogen fuel cell. That will be something that'll be in our portfolio in time. But right now, priority number one is BEV. That's kind of the first piece to the equation. It's the known piece to the equation, and we're working through that delivery as we speak.
Yeah, and one of the first applications in that, short haul city delivery sort of thing is beverage. So maybe we just coined a new term, Bev in Bev.
Yes, yes.
And one of the, we did some work with our partner RMI and Geotab over the last 6 months. And I got to tell you, I've been in this business a long time, and it has shocked me how many trucks operate 300 miles and less a day, or even 200 miles and less a day. I just thought that that I kind of got caught up myself in this, thinking that everything's long haul and, long regional haul of 400 or 500 miles. I don't know. Have you guys analyzed that to extent, or even if you haven't, what's your gut tell you about the amount of trucks? I think there's enough there to start the scaling.
Yes, I think the private segment is really the one that really have to, especially food, wholesale, like the deliveries. Those are the ones that are running. A lot of their fleets are running less than 200 miles, Mike. It really gives you a chance to zero in on their operations because it's the ideal operations. They're in and out, or they're doing store to store deliveries. And we're seeing that private segment as a big opportunity. And then of course you still have your on general freight, your LTL type carriers. They're moving a lot over the highway. That's longer haul, but they still have stops in between. So you think about those shorter regional haul, those are really an opportunity for electric. And that's where we see it hitting first. Long haul is a challenge.
No, I think you're right. And I think there are a couple of other things around these shorter regional hauls. They tend to keep their trucks a long time, so they don't have to worry about, moving it, or they get involved in leasing, where some of these leasing companies can help navigate the infrastructure, the the resale maybe of the truck during its life, et cetera. So I think that there's a lot of really good parts of this shorter haul electric truck. Now, they don't burn as much fuel. Obviously, if you don't go as many miles, you don't burn as much fuel. You don't save as much money as as the longer ones. But I think it's going to be a great proving ground. I think we'll look back 5 years and say, man, we learned a lot from school buses, medium duty trucks, and the short regional.
For sure. And I'd say, even talking to the customers that we work with closely, they're adamant that electric is the solution for them in that 150. They really want to get their hands around the tractor, even though it doesn't do quite as many as a long haul. There still is a substantial amount of mileage and fuel savings, when you bring 150 miles a day on a consistent basis.
Yeah, we're
also a day.
Yeah, and what we're seeing with some of the early trucks out there is the uptime's really good. Now that may be just, luck because, well, not luck, but just because they're sort of hand-built prototypes, and maybe they've been, but still, there's some early indications that, not having all these moving parts, no after treatment, on and on, has an opportunity to save a good bit in maintenance. Now, whether it'll be 30%, 60%, somewhere in between, who knows? But a lot of very interesting, exciting pieces to it. So then, how will we figure out long haul, my friend? I suppose that'll be a combination of, making diesel better, possibly looking at more charging of these electric trucks. Maybe we can find opportunity charging with the MCS and obviously fuel cells. But is that something we just got to figure out over time with a lot of trial and error, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think about it as first you got to have something, in the pipeline. And I do think fuel cell is going to be a big piece of those real long hauls, the 1,000 miles a day kind of thing. I do think that fuel cell is probably going to come into play, but you hit the nail on the head when you talk about intermediate stops, intermediate charging. Think about the infrastructure. There's a lot of work on that. We have the charging infrastructure, as we all know, is critical. It's the enabler to all of this. So as that starts coming on, and I don't know if it's trial and error as much as you just got to keep feeding into the infrastructure. Because even on fuel cell, if that were the play, you still have an infrastructure play there as well.
Right, right. So, what's exciting for me is a couple things. One, the trucking industry is becoming much more diverse and much bigger. So as you think about including utilities and EVSE suppliers, and even now the increased regulations. I mean, there's just a lot more people out there to work with, bringing a lot of solutions. That both comes with challenges and opportunities. But in your work, do you see that happening? That the industry is just bigger and more diverse, and that comes with both challenges and strengths, right?
Yeah, you see a lot more entrants. I think I understand your question. There's a lot more entrants coming into this, I guess, technology, because more people are familiar with electric than diesel, in my opinion. And I do think it brings more people to the market. So you got components coming up. People are understanding how to use electric even on componentry. So you start thinking more and more away from the ICE side of things. I do think there's more entrants and there's more competitiveness, if you will, in that space.
Yeah, and it'll all shake out over the next years. Hey, we're starting to run out of time, but as you think about your career and your current role and so forth. I mean, this podcast has a lot of very kind of a diverse audience, but what would you say to them around this trucking, the future of trucking, and how they can improve not only the efficiency but sustainability of what we're doing?
Well, electrification has momentum right now and it's here to stay. I see the momentum continuing. We need to get our head around it and figure out how we're going to support that momentum. The industry needs to plan for electric. We got to increase the grid. We got to increase the infrastructure. So the first and foremost, I think fleets should start looking at their infrastructure, reach out to us, reach out to our partners, understand here's what they need to start electrifying there. You just got to try it. You just got to start using it. You got to start using the trucks, understanding what your footprint looks like. The pace of change, it just continues to accelerate in our industry. And Mike, you've been in this industry a long time. It typically takes a long time for change to occur. This seems to be the opposite of that. It seems like electrics, just started hitting the streets here in the last couple of years, and the momentum behind it, you were at ACT, it really has taken off. And just, we need to get our head around, how do we support that initiative? How do we, go after decarbonization? How do we support the infrastructure? How do we support the tractors? And ultimately moving towards that next level.
Yeah, I think we'll close with we'll close our talk with that thought. I mean, I think that there's no denial around this. This is happening and coming, and in a lot of what we work on, I think there's a time period of I'm not sure, we're not sure, we're not sure. I think this is pretty sure. And so what I find is a lot less, like everybody knowing a lot about electric trucks. I mean, we don't have to do the beginning or even zero emission trucks. We don't need to do the base work. So they come to it with a real knowing, and then they try to figure out how it fits in their business. Right now, for instance, if you're running regional haul tractors, but you also are involved in the warehousing and you've got some yard tractors, we say, hey, go buy a couple of electric yard tractors. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a no-lose situation, gets you started in the whole electrification journey. So, a lot of people are spectators now, and I think the opportunities to start playing and getting into the ball game and really figuring it out are coming fast. So I agree with you.
Well,
Hey, Chet.
I was going to say, I look forward to seeing how this plays out. I think we've been around the industry a long time. I mean, you've been around the industry a long time, and just seeing the momentum that's coming here, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And I think we all got to learn this together as we're moving down this path.
Very well said, Chet. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an interesting talk.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Rosen Friends.